Good morning Year 4 and welcome to Monday's maths lesson. So this lesson is going to be for the children with the Year 3 booklet, and today's learning we are just focusing on page 20, and this is page 20, so I just want us to be looking at section 1, 2 and 3 for this video. Okay, so before we start our learning today, I've got a warm up on the board. Now I've got two symbols. I've got one here, which is my division, and I've got one here, which is my multiplication. And what I want you to do at home is I want you to think about different words which would mean multiply and different words which would also mean to divide, okay? And I want you to think about them and see if you get any of the ones that I'm going to write on the board. So let's start with multiply. Now let's write down multiply because we know that that is a word that is associated with multiplying. Okay, so I'll get my pen and we can put down multiply. That's mighty. Okay, so can you think of any other words which mean the same as multiply? Think about what we do a lot in school. We have to practice it a lot because we will be having our test and it's called a something tables test. What's another word that I could use for this? Okay, it begins with T and it is time. So well done if you got that at home. Okay, so I'm going to put on here times. Okay, because that also means the same operation, which is to multiply. Any other words that we can think of for multiply? So we've been having a look at them on the board sometimes before we start our learning. So thinking back to our previous learning, can you think of any other words that mean the same as multiply? So we've got multiply, times. Now sometimes we put them into groups, don't we? So sometimes we say 3 groups of 3, which means 3 times 3. So groups of is another one that we could use. So we've got groups of as well. Okay, so well done if any of you thought of any other ones at home that we haven't put on the board today. So that's really good so that you know your maths vocabulary 4 times. Now let's move on to our divide. So let's write divide down and then we're going to have a look at some other words that also mean the same operation. So we've got divide. And then can you think of any other ones at home which we might have? Now think about last week's learning. We were looking at dividing, weren't we? And towards the end we were drawing circles, and what did we have to do? And it begins with the sh sound. We had to share, didn't we? So well done if you got that at home. We do need to share, so I will write that on the board. Okay, wonderful. Now, if we were dividing by 2, there was another thing that I said we do. So when we're dividing by 2, we can share it, but we are also doing what to it? We are halving, aren't we? So if we divide by 2, we are halving. So we can also use that word as well. So I'm going to put half. Ooh, half down there as well. Other words that you could have got as well are split. So it might be to split. Okay, and we could have equal groups. We looked at them as well, didn't we? Now I've just thought there was one word which I wanted to make sure I put on here, and it was one of the words when we were looking at multiplication last week that I kept referring back to because it was new vocabulary, wasn't it? So we need to keep revisiting our new vocabulary, and it began with the word P. So at home, can you tell me on my device what is the word that I'm thinking of that I wanted to make sure that I write down today? It is product, isn't it? So when they say find the product of 5 and 3, it means we need to do 5 times 3. So I'm going to write product down here as well, and that was our new vocabulary that we looked at last week. Okay, so just to warm up, those are some of the words that we can use in our maths vocabulary for our multiply and divide operation. Now let's have a look at our learning questions so we know what we are focusing on today, because we have finished with multiplication and division, I'm afraid, but we are moving on to something new. Okay then, so looking at my learning question, I've got, can I begin to use estimation to solve calculations? So when we are estimating, another word for estimating is guessing, but it's a good guess. We need to think about our calculations to get as close to the answer as we can. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've got some dice here, and each of the dice are going to give me a number that's generated to go into my hundreds column, my tens column, and my ones column. And what I'm going to do underneath in my second row is I'm going to round it to the nearest 10, and then we're going to see there's a rhyme behind me here that we've used in school as well that we can use just to refresh our memories. Okay, so let's roll the dice to see what number we can generate. So my hundreds column is going to be 4. Okay, so I've got 4 in my hundreds column. Let's have a look what I'm going to have in my tens column. Oh, I've got a 5. Okay, oh, let's go into my pen. So I've got 5. And let's have a look what I've got in my ones. 6. Right, so my ones has got the 6 in there. Can you have a look at home? And I want you to say which word I have generated with my dice, looking at my hundreds, tens, and my ones column. What is the number that I have generated? So I've got 456. So 456 is the number that I have generated. Now remember, I did say that I've got another box to fill out under here. So I want to have a look at this rhyme, and it is my rounding rhyme, isn't it? And it's how we determined if we're rounding it up or if we are rounding it down. So if the number ends in 5 to 9, we climb the vine. So 5 to 9, we climb the vine, which means that we round it to the next 10. 0 to 4, we slide to the floor, which means that we stay on the tens that we have got. So we're focusing on rounding to 10 today. Okay, so I want us to have a look. If we are rounding to 10, this is the column that we are looking at. Okay. Okay, so we are looking at this because we are rounding to the next 10. So is my number 5 to 9? Is it 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9? Yes, so it's 6. So it says to climb the vine, which means that my 10 now moves to the next 10. So let's go onto my pen and I'll show you how we can show this. So my 100 stays the same. However, because my number is 5 to 9, I climb the vine and my 10 from 50 now turns to 60. And when we are rounding, we make sure that it is to the nearest 10. Okay, so my number has been rounded from 456 to 460 based on the number that is in my ones column. Right, let's have another go at this so you can see how we round to 10. Oh dear, let's go back. Okay, right, let's roll the dice so we are ready for a fresh number to be generated. So, okay, so the first number in the hundreds column is 2. In the tens column is also 2. And in the ones column, we've got 6 again. Now we've already had 6 in the ones column, so let's generate another number so we know whether we are going up or down. Wow, so I've got a 2 in the hundreds, a 2 in the tens, and a 2 in the ones. So let's write down my number that I've generated. 222. And if we are rounding to the nearest 10, I am looking at my ones column. So I'll get my highlighter again for you. So I'm looking at my ones column here. and I'm looking at what number it is. It's the number 2, isn't it? So 5 to 9, I climb the vine. 0 to 4, we slide to the floor. So is it 0 to 4? Yes, it is. It's the number 2 on my vine. So I need to slide to the 4. So actually, my nearest 10 is going to be 20. It's not going to be rounded to 30 because it doesn't have the number 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9. So when we are sliding to the floor, I'm going to remain the same in my tens column, but remember, my ones stays as a 0 when we are rounding. Okay, so this is the number that I need to be generating. So my 100 stays the same. My tens also stays the same. However, when we are rounding, my ones turns to a 0. And it changed from a 2 to a 0 because we are rounding. Now in my tens column, my tens has also stayed the same, and that's because my number was 0, 1, 2, 3 or 4. It was 2, wasn't it? So it stays at the 10 that it was already at. Okay, so when you come on to do your estimating in your books, you will know how you can use rounding to help you answer some of your questions. Now I'm going to go a little bit further into detail now, and we're going to round, but we're going to do it in a multiplication and division sentence. Okay, so I've got 2 multiplication sentences on the board. I've got 46 multiplied by 21, and I've got 19 multiplied by 87. What I'm going to do on the board is I'm going to round my numbers up, which will give me a good estimate of what the answer is going to be. So rounding and estimating work really well together because their methods are so closely related. So when I am rounding on a multiplication number sentence, if we have a look at 46 multiplied by 21, I've highlighted the 6 and the 1, and those are the numbers that I am going to look at when I am rounding up, or whether I'm rounding and staying the same as the tens that we've got already. So 46, if it's 5 to 9, we climb the vine. Is it 5 to 9 on my 6? Yes, it is. So my 6 is going to turn to a 0, but if I'm climbing the vine, I'm going to the next 10. So on the board, I'm going to round 46 to the nearest 10, which is 50. Okay. I've got my multiply symbol there ready, and then the next number I've got to look at is 21. So I'm looking in the ones column to determine whether I am rounding up to 30 or whether I'm staying at 20. And it is 0 to 4, and we slide to the floor and we stay on the same 10 that we've already got. So I'm going to stay at 2 in my tens column, and then I need to have a 0 in my ones column, so because I'm rounding to the nearest 10. Okay, so it always has to be the nearest 10. And because I have got 50 multiplied by 20, that will be able to give me an estimate, a very close guess to what this multiplication sentence would be. So it's not going to give me the exact answer, but if it's asking you to estimate, it's giving you a very close guess, and the way that we have done this is by using the rounding method to get a very close guess to what that answer would be. Okay, let's have a look at the second one that I've got on the board. So my number sentence is 19 multiplied by 87. So I'm looking in my ones column again, and I'm looking whether it is 5 to 9 to climb the vine to the next 10, or 0 to 4 to slide to the floor to remain at the 10 that I've got. So let's have a look at 19 first. So I've got 9. So it says 5 to 9 we climb the vine. So we're going to the next 10 from 10. So the next 10 is 10, 20. So I'm going to have 20 here. I've got my multiply sign in there, and then I'm looking at 87. So the number 7 is also 5 to 9. So we're climbing the vine and going to the next 10 again. So what 10 comes after 80 is 90. So 90 is going to be my rounded number. 87 rounded to the nearest 10 is 90. And 19 rounded to the nearest 10 is 20. And if I can work out that number sentence, it's going to give me a very close guess to what my answer would be for this top multiplication sentence as well. Okay then, so here in your books what I have got is something very similar, and I've got my number here, and you can see that I have highlighted my ones column because we are rounding to the nearest 10 today. And in your books you've got the answers which are in boxes. Then you've got some examples next to it. So when you have a look at the examples, you've got to circle which answer is the correct one, which is going to be rounded. So when I round 76, am I rounding it to 70 or am I rounding it to 80? So we look at our ones column first, don't we? And we identify whether it's 0 to 4 or whether it's 5 to 9. Now I can see that it's 5 to 9 because I've got a 6 in my ones column. So I'm rounding it up to the nearest 10. So it's the nearest 10 that comes after 70, which will be 80. So I can circle the correct answer, which is 80. Let's move on to the second one. So we've got 43. Am I rounding it up to 50 or am I remaining at my 10 at 40? So first of all, we look at the ones column. 0 to 4, we slide to the floor, and it is 0 to 4. So we are remaining at 40. So my answer for this is going to be 40. Okay, and what I've done now is I've just challenged us a little bit and I've used a 3-digit number. Now we are still only rounding to 10, so I'm still only looking at my ones column, but I need to be determined whether I am rounding up or rounding down. Now having a look at my number 5, 5 to 9 means to climb the vine, and we go to the next 10. Now after 190, the next 10 after that is going to be what? After 190, add another 10 onto 190, we're going to get 200, aren't we? Okay, so I'm going to round it up to 200, and I'm going to leave 190 because my 5 means that I need to climb up to the next 10 that comes after 90, which would move us into the next 100. Okay, so we've had a look at different methods today of rounding. We've started off by generating numbers and rounding them up to the nearest 10. Then we've looked at it into the context of a multiplication sentence, haven't we? So we've looked at how we can use estimating and rounding to get us a good guess on a big multiplication number sentence. And then on here, we've got some examples of what is in your books today. Okay, so what I want you to do is you can start your books now, or if you want to carry on playing the video, I have got a challenge and you can submit your answers through the year group email before you have finished your work if you want to. So if you want to be one of them people who are fast and quick and you want to reply for my challenge, then please do. So I'm going to read you what my challenge is for today. So I am thinking of an even number. When I round it to the nearest 10, it becomes 80. What number could I be thinking of? So think about it's got to be even. It's got to be an even number and it's got to be rounded up to 80. Okay? So when I round it to the nearest 10, it comes to 80. So I'm rounding up to 80, so it's going to be in the 70s. It's got to be an even number that rounds me up to 80. So if you know the answer, you can take some time to work it out if you want to. And if you want to reply and to go into the year group email address before you submit your work, that is also absolutely fine. Okay, good luck everybody and well done. Make sure you send all of your work into the year 4 email address.